Today you see a super cute pattern, and it's extra special because it's a free pattern. Beautiful design features, V neckline, little shoulder pleats right there, easy to sew. Hi sewing friends, I'm Karina from liftingpinsandneedles.com. Welcome to this channel that is all about sewing, limitless sewing, and today I'm sharing with you 3 versions of a pattern I've made just in the last couple of days, and it's a free pattern. It's a French pattern, but no worries because you won't need to be using any translating devices. All the information on the website and on the actual patterns is in French and in English. So if you don't know French, I don't know French, you'll be absolutely fine. You'll be able to make the pattern, and it's really, really cute. Now, I do not know how to pronounce this because there's an accent mark on the de, so I don't know if it's Declic. Let's just say it's Declic. That's the name of the blouse. It's really simple, but it has lovely details that I think are worth looking at. The V neckline, of course, is always beautiful. It's for woven fabric, so it's finished with a facing, and then on the shoulders, you have 2 pleats. Very beautiful. I love that detail. Usually when you see pleats and any detail of gathers or pleats on the shoulders, that usually comes from rotating a bust dart over to this side, so there's no bust dart there. And then you have a front and a back piece that's on the fold, simple, and then you have a type of grown on sleeve, drop shoulder styles. It'll have a little more cover than a completely sleeveless traditional armhole, but a little less than a dolman sleeve, so it's sort of in the middle right there. Seems to be designed to be quite long, hitting the full hip, but that's always something that you can adjust, and it's easy fitting with a nice amount of wearing ease. For the fabric, it's designed for wovens, and because you have little pleats here and the design is a little more straight fitting, less fitting features, I would always look for something that flows and drapes, that's really fluid, that's going to flow with the wind. Those types of fabrics are always going to deal with the volume a lot better than something that's structured. It's not about the weight of the fabric all the time. If you have really lightweight cottons, sometimes they can even be really transparent and very light, but they don't drape at all. So I wouldn't really go for any cottons for this design, just because I think it would look boxy. Now, if you don't mind, if you want to make a really cropped version, I think it would look okay if you make it with a structured fabric. But when it's already hitting the high to mid hip, I'd probably not want anything too boxy. So my choices have all got to do with rayon. You can see the fabrics I recommend here. There's a lot of rayon variations because there's a lot of ways to weave it, and there's a lot of weights for it as well. So I've got one in a rayon linen blend. There's only 13% in the linen, and there's a texture of a Swiss dot in there, blue color, beautiful. That's for one. I have another one in a plain rayon weave, very lightweight, plain color, plum. And then the third one is the heaviest one, and it's a rayon twill in black. When you look at patterns that are made in Europe, you'll find usually the equivalents there, so 34 to 52 European. Funnily enough, that is the type of sizing that you see in South America when you go to the shops. So you see pants that say 40, 42, whatnot. I'm very accustomed to European sizing. And then you have the equivalent in UK or US sizing. Just make sure you look at your measurements and the chart. Don't go by your ready-to-wear sizes. It's got nothing to do with sewing patterns. So just look there, don't be confused by the numbers, and you'll be okay. The ease, as I mentioned before, it's easy wearing, easy fit. At the bust, you have about 4 inches of ease, and at the hips, about 5. Don't worry about the waist because it's sort of straight down, so you have plenty of space there. It says it's designed for a woman that's 170 centimeters. That is an inch shorter than me, so about 5'7". So it's designed for a tallish woman. And even for me, that I'm sort of in that height range, I think the original design is just way too long for what I prefer. Length is always very personal. Some people like their tops long, others like them cropped. I'm sort of in between. I knew from the get-go I wanted to make my top at least 2 inches shorter than the original because I just don't want a very long. Now, there's one thing about the style here. This drop shoulder, when I look at the pattern piece and measure it, I know that it's going to end up quite open, quite low here. So I always knew I wanted to reduce the length of that armhole. It is something that you can do for sure. I think having it be low like that is just a design feature. It doesn't mean it has to fit like that if you don't want it to be. So I'm going to show you quickly on my pattern piece what I did to remove the 2 inches that I wanted. I did 1 inch up here on the armhole, and then 1 inch down below around the hip area. This is the back pattern piece, and you can see the shoulder, and it's like a drop shoulder style, sleeveless, but it's not actually sleeveless like a regular armhole. It's sort of like a really short dolman sleeve. And just by eyeballing this, and if I measure from here down, I know that this opening is going to show too much under my arm if I raise my arms. You can see the shape is pretty straight, you know, there's no waist definition. It's a pretty loose style. So I don't think it's going to affect the placement of the waist notch right there. If we just scoot this up by an inch, I'm going to shorten it. So all I've done is draw a line here and a line there, an inch apart, and I'm just going to overlap and shorten the armhole basically by an inch right here. So basically by doing this, I'm just closing up the opening under the arm a little bit. It'll still look like the original design. It'll just be a little more closed underneath. Also, you'll find in the pattern the total length. I think it's just too long for what I prefer. So down at the bottom, I just added my own line as well, the same as I did over there. I drew a line and another one 1 inch up, and now I'm just overlapping at the bottom here as well. That's how my top is going to end up being 2 inches shorter, 1 inch taken from the armhole area here, the other inch taken here down below. At the same points, I'm going to do the exact same thing for the front. I don't think this design is too sensitive to needing a full bust adjustment, just because they've got all the volume up here from above the bust, so there's no bust that's going to fit funnily if it doesn't fit you, you know, all the space is coming from up here. So I think these are easier to fit whether you have a smaller or a larger chest. I'm not saying you might not need a full bust adjustment. It's not specified the bust cup size that we have here. I assume it's a B cup. I'm a C sewing cup size, so I'm okay. I didn't need to do anything. I have filmed some sewing for you. Now, if you see the instructions, they've got photographs. You'll see one of it is in French, another half of it is in English, so you'll be able to do it. They do have steps that I'm not going to follow. So the seam allowances for the general seams, like the shoulders, the side seams, the hem allowances are all 5/8. And that's drafted like that so you are able to do French seams. That's what they do in the pattern. You do your first seam at 1/4 inch and then your second seam at 3/8. That gets you the French seam inside. I really didn't want to do that because the bulk here on the shoulders with the pleats, when you have a French seam on top of that, it could get really bulky here. And I'm all about less bulk in my sewing. If I have a serger that can accomplish a neat seam, I am going to use the serger. So I'm not doing that. I'm sewing my seams at 5/8 and then trimming them down to 3/8 when I serge. That's what I've done with all of mine. I usually reserve French seams only for chiffon or very lightweight silk, but for other fabrics, I'm just not going to do them. You can do them if you want. Now the other thing, it says to stabilize with narrow strips of interfacing along the whole garment, like even the side seams, even the armholes, and I think that's just too much. I would consider doing that if this was a bias cut garment, but it's not. So all I am stabilizing with interfacing as per the pattern is the V neckline and the back neckline. I think that's really important. All the rest, I just don't think it's too necessary, but you go ahead if you want to follow instructions. I'm just doing things based on my experience and I don't think you really need to do it. So let's go ahead and see some fun sewing. When you have a pattern that has both the front and the back on the fold, depending on the style and depending on how wide the fabric is or the size you're sewing, there might be a chance that you can still get it in one length. You would just take the selvages and fold them in towards the center. Not exactly the center, but at least fold them enough so that you have enough space here to fit both pieces. For example, this front is a little wider than the back. That's usually the case. So my selvages run along there, and I'm very careful before cutting. I want to measure the selvage to the fold over here in various places and make sure I'm exactly on the grain line there at the fold and that this measures exactly the same as that side over there. And I'll be able to cut this blouse with barely any fabric, less than a yard. And they are facing pieces. I'm going to look in my scraps if I have a matching rayon that I could do the facing with. I have quite a bit left that I could do another thing with, so I don't want to waste a lot of fabric on facings. Just consider this layout and see if it could work. Sometimes it doesn't, but a lot of the time it does, especially if you have nice wide 56-inch or 54-inch wide fabric. I'm at the ironing board and I just want to show you the pleat mark. There's basically two pleats, this volume and that volume over here. You can see them marked on the pattern. What I do is I just poke a hole through it with a pen, and then I draw a dot with my friction pen, and I mark the tops of the pleats, and then I poke a pin on both sides, and that's how I draw them. Easy peasy. You've seen me do this before when I stabilize the neckline with interfacing. This is really accurate and it really lasts. It makes the construction so much easier, especially when attaching the facing. You're not going to have this stretch out in the form. So I'm trying to not get any heat onto my marks there. And this is 1/2 inch. We're going to be sewing the facing on with 1/4 inch. So we're going to be sure to have a really stable area. And I've got my pattern piece underneath just to make sure I'm keeping the shape right here, that I'm not fusing this on to another shape. Over here on the fold, I'm just going to extend this so I can see the V. This is basically going to stabilize the bottom of the V and the area where we pivot later. I don't need the paper anymore because I can just align these edges, and the other side is going to be the reference for this side to not get deformed. See now that the V area is really stable. Now I have a really stable V. I have a bit of a crisscross of interfacing right there, which is fine because we're going to pivot and snip into there, so I don't see that as a negative. It'll be more stable. You need to do something here. If not this, at least stay stitched, but don't just leave it and hope for the best and then hope for your facing to fit, because then you run into problems. Fusing the interfacing here is actually on these pattern instructions, which I think is really good. But if you have a pattern that doesn't and you're working with lightweight fabric like this, I would recommend you do this. And from this side, you're not going to see it, but look how stable this is. I'm doing block fusing for my facings, which is what I do all the time. I've just got a piece of fabric I sort of calculated will fit both my pieces. And you just get half of a facing piece with most patterns. So I just add paper and replicate it so I have an extended piece for both. And I think that's a more accurate way to cut interfacing, because you don't have to deal with the error that can occur at the fold if you have a little excess fabric or a little bit less. Once I've got them here, I'll just cut it out and I'll be happy that the facing has exactly the same shape and size than the original pattern piece and will not deform, which can happen if you cut fabric, if you cut interfacing and you try to fuse them and you get, and also the fabric usually shrinks. If this fabric shrunk a little, it doesn't matter, it's already done that. It's already got the interfacing on, and that's not going to happen later on. Not many pattern pieces at all. This could be quite a fast sew after you do the cutting and all of that. The back is on the fold. Here is the back facing already interfaced. Front on the fold, the front interfacing. So I'm going to start by putting the pleats together. Once the pleats are done, we can sew the shoulder seams of the top and also the little seams of the facing. Then we do the neckline, side seams and the hem. This pattern recommends French seams, and that's why the seam allowance for the main seams is 5/8 of an inch. So that would include the shoulders and the sides. But I don't want to do French seams. I think it could get bulky with all the volume of the pleats on there. So I'm perfectly happy to just serge. I will be sewing at 5/8 but trimming the seam allowances smaller. When you have pleats on any seam that is not straight, you know, this has a slope, it's a shoulder, you're always going to see these jagged lines like this. Don't think that's a mistake. It has to be like that. When these are closed and when you press the volume to where it has to go, then you're going to end up with a smooth line. On each shoulder, we have 2 pleats, and I'm joining up the lines that we have, just putting a few pins here. And I'm actually going to sew these pleats down just with a basting stitch, something that we can remove at the very end. I'm using a longer stitch length and I'm not back tacking. And of course, if you do it with one shoulder, you do the same with the other side. Over here, you see that if you press the pleat towards the neckline right here, you get an even edge on the shoulder. If you attempted to fold them the other way, the edges are not going to match. Look at this. So don't make that mistake. Don't think, oh, well, I have to just trim that away. That's not how the pattern was designed. It's designed to be like this, and the fabric is always going to tell you how it's going to be. From this end, you're pressing them towards the neckline. And I'm just going to do a quick basting stitch on the top just to hold this in place so that they don't move or go anywhere. Seam allowance is 5/8 on this pattern, so this basting stitch is just within that. Now that the pleats are done, we can just align the shoulder seams. The front originally was longer because it had pleats there, but now that the pleats are done, it should match the length of your back. Just a detail about the shoulder seams. I'm going to be sewing them from the edge up to the neckline. On this side, I'll have the pleats on top because I want to follow the direction of the pleats right there with the presser foot. I don't want to be sewing against them. So on this side, if I wanted to keep sewing from here to there like that, I would just catch them, and yeah, it's not too neat. So I've basically pinned them on the other side, and on this side, I'll still be sewing from the edge of the sleeve up to the neckline, but just the other way around so that I sew in the direction of the pleats right there. So we just get these sewn at 5/8. I'm going to go ahead and trim that at the serger, just making the seam allowance smaller. There are quite a few layers with the pleats here, so I was not keen at all to do French seams here. I'm going to sew the little seams of the facings as well. Just get that out of the way, get them pressed open. I'm also going to serge the edges of the facing to have that ready. I'm going to open up my top and just match up the facing on top of the neckline. Everything should match up. I'm going to pin it and hand baste it before sewing it so that nothing moves. This is rayon, you know, it's not the easiest fabric, so I don't think it's an extra chore to hand baste it, just to make sure I get a really nice result. I have marked a little pivot point there where I'm going to pivot at the V point. I'm going to go ahead and sew around with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, which is what is drafted into this pattern. I love that. It's my perfect seam allowance because then you don't have to trim anything away. Love that. After sewing the facing to the neckline, we just snip around the curved areas so that we can flip this to the inside and you won't have that tension. And then we're going to understitch, of course. Like all understitching, you want to keep the seam allowance underneath the facing because that's what's going to keep the facing inside and not seen from the outside, especially because I'm using another piece of fabric for the facing that is slightly darker than the main fabric. It's still rayon. So I'm not going to understitch up to the V. I'm going to get as close to the V as I can, and then I'm going to start again on the other side of the V and just keep going around, sewing right there on the edge. That's how the V looks. It's super neat. And now I'm going to head over to the iron and press this flat. I've decided that for all the blouses I'm making, I am going to be top stitching only the back part of the facing. So from one shoulder seam to the other. At the same time that I'm pressing this facing flat, I've also hand basted it while keeping it flat there so nothing moves. The front, you can't really top stitch it down because it would go right over the pleats. This is my beautiful blue version, the first one. So gorgeous, the one you saw in the tutorial. Tell me how beautiful these details are. I mean, they're just so beautiful. You can see that I have a cheeky facing. This is 100% rayon, but the plain weave, very lightweight. It's interfaced, and I use that inside for the facings instead of cutting into the small piece I had left of this beautiful fabric where I can make a cami. So whenever I see about 70 centimeters, which might be about 3/4 of a yard, I know I can make a top from that for sure. I do not want to cut into that to get facings. There's no way. So I am all for saving material. I use scraps, and that's what I've done there. Perfectly acceptable. So nice. And then this is the original design, no sleeve, dropped shoulder style. I've just folded in once by 3/8. The pattern said fold in twice by 1/4 inch, but I find that too bulky. And plus I have matching serger thread, like it matches exactly, so it looks really nice. Then the rest is just really simple side seams, a hem. So easy to put together after doing your pleats and your neckline. You can whip these up very quickly, and the result is so beautiful. It's so cute. It's like an elevated t-shirt. And I'm so happy with it, and plus I love the blue. Now you'll see me style my 3 versions with some of my sky skirts and hello shorts from Sinclair Patterns. I really love those designs and I wear them all the time. they go perfect with these. This is my first Declic blouse in size 46 European. I've got a rayon with a Swiss dot detail and a tiny bit of linen in the blend, 2 inches shorter than the original length. I've paired it over one of my sky skirts from Sinclair Patterns. This is for knit fabrics, and this is a cotton lycra with a denim look. And this skirt, even though it has this beautiful volume at the bottom, is fitted at the waist and hip, so it doesn't really give you all that bulk like a skirt that has all the volume at the waist would. So this is a perfect pairing for me. Really fun outfit. Love dressing in tones of blue. It's one of my favorite colors, and this outfit is just so comfortable, so fresh. Here you can see that this is a nice length for me. I wouldn't have wanted this any longer than this. Perfect to wear with a skirt like this where the volume starts below this. At the hip you see it's nice and fitted, so it doesn't give you that bulk. Perfect. You can see the amount of ease is nice and comfortable. Closer look at the neckline. The facing on the front is beautiful. The depth of the V is perfect. I'm not showing anything. And look at this. How gorgeous is this? You can see the opening of this armhole, so it covers more than the sleeveless armhole. A dolman sleeve would be a little longer than this, would have a curve. If you wanted to shorten your pattern an extra inch and make this even more close, then you could do that for sure. I have a bra that matches my skin tone, so I think it's pretty discreet and no one's ever gonna know it's there. Such a beautiful top. I'm so happy I made it. It's a great free pattern. You're missing out if you don't get it. Such a beautiful top. I love this color. The design is so comfortable. This is so easy to wear. These woven tees are just as comfortable as a knit t-shirt in my opinion, and look so much better. Just an elevated tee. I love this so much. That's why I decided to make 2 more with sleeves. You'll see those afterwards. Now I've swapped my sky skirt for my white denim glissando skirt I made recently. It's a refashion. Blue and white is just so lovely together. I absolutely love it. And I have a fun bag that has some colors there just to liven up the outfit a little bit. So comfortable. I love this for summer. I don't actually know how I was living my life without a white denim skirt before. I just never had one, and now I have one, and you'll get sick of me using it to style everything from now on. Basically, everything. Here's a color combination that's not the most common that you would see, and I see brown as a neutral. I think brown can go with a lot of colors. These are also a pair of Hello shorts from Sinclair Patterns I made a little while back. Same time I made the pink ones. I'm trying to tone everything down by keeping the shoes and the bag matching the shorts as well. And then just having the Declic blouse be the only pop of color here. You cannot be uncomfortable in an outfit like this. Linen on the bottom, rayon on the top. It's just fresh city. Now, you know I like to make content that is related to each other, the videos, and sort of group together in a sort of period of time. So in the previous video that you saw, I showed you how you can add sleeves to dolman styles or drop shoulder styles like this if you want to extend the life of these patterns. This beautiful blue top would only work in the summer because you've got all your arms exposed. But what happens if you just want a little short sleeve here so that it ends up at the elbow or something like that? You can create the pattern pieces, and I've already shown you how. So for the next 2 versions, you'll see one with a short sleeve and with a long sleeve. And that was so fun to do, so easy to do. I really enjoyed doing that. And it just takes this pattern further. It's so beautiful. All this is so lovely. Why not add sleeves, you know? Here is my second version, and I made it in this beautiful plum color. It's sort of matching the dress I'm wearing today. I love these tones. I think they suit me really well, and all the details are the same. In this case, I have the same facing because I had enough fabric. And then instead of just having an armhole, I have a little sleeve. I set this one on the flat, very easy. For this one, I folded the hem up twice. This fabric was fraying like no tomorrow, and it was very easy to just fold it up twice. These light fabrics, I'm quite happy to fold them up twice, especially if it's just straight right here. There's no curve, so that's what I've done there. And same as the hem at the bottom. Look at this flying away with the wind. And I have a sky skirt from Sinclair Patterns in an athletic knit that has these plum tones in a print. Very difficult to style for me at this point because I didn't have any solids to go with it on top other than black. Next, I've got my plum color Declic blouse. This one has a hack. I've added a short sleeve to the armhole just to make it more versatile. It's a very easy hack that you can do as well. And this plum color goes perfect with the print in this athletic knit from my sky skirt. This is also from Sinclair Patterns. This skirt does have pockets, curved waistband, it's nicely fitted at the waist and hips, and then has this beautiful piece at the bottom without the bulk at the waist. I think it's the perfect type of skirt because then you can wear something loose on top like this, and I love it. When I chose the fabric for this blouse, I was thinking about this skirt because I had trouble pairing things on top other than black, just nothing went with it. I'm so happy with this color combination. Here you can see the neckline. It's all the same details that we already love. We've just added on a short sleeve. It makes it a little more versatile. If you would like a longer sleeve and would like to cover your arms, you can do this very easily and just add on a sleeve to this pattern. It's so easy, and I'm glad I did it. And these types of sleeves are easy because you just sew them on the flat one-to-one. You don't need to ease anything in. It's just so very easy. Now I've swapped my athletic knit sky skirt and brought back the navy one, the cotton lycra denim look sky skirt. This one is a little simplified because it doesn't have the pockets, but it still has all the features. It's all the same fit, and I've always really enjoyed these combinations of colors, navy and plum, navy and burgundy. Just think navy is such a great base color, and I love this so much. These looks that I put together for you are exactly how I would walk out the door, and I'm always so happy to walk out of my house in my handmade, so proud. Just being happy that I can make clothes exactly like the way I want them to be is just the best. Now this next outfit might be a little bit out there. I brought out my pink Hello shorts. This is also a pattern from Sinclair that I made a little while ago. And they're such great fitting shorts, flat front, elasticated back. And I think the tone of pink goes really well with the plum color of the top. I think these tones of colors really go together, complement each other. They make me so happy. I know this type of outfit is not to be on the low. I think people would see you, but that's okay. I'm okay with that. And I really love it with the pink shoes. It's just such a fun outfit. And I'm just so happy I have a top in this color that's so unusual. And it's so hard to find fabrics in these colors, at least it is for me. Remember, on each single video, I always link for you some videos that are helpful from content I've already made. So if you want to know more about rayon and how to work with rayon, I have a full rayon movie all about it you can watch. And if you want to know more about V necklines and facings and how I deal with facings in more depth, find the details down below because I'm always referring back to my previous content if you want to just go a little bit deeper on the topic. The third one is my winter version. I've made a long sleeve version and I've used the heaviest of all the rayons, a rayon twill, and it's black. I didn't have any blouse like this at all. I've just got sleeveless and short sleeve black things. I didn't really have a black one at all. And so this one just has a sleeve, but it's long. I've made it wide here at the bottom, and I just did a 1-inch hem allowance that made a casing for an elastic. I adjusted that to my wrist so that it's still got some ease. It's so nice. And it's just very lovely, easy to wear, easy to fit. Same lovely details that we already know and love, but just making it more versatile for the winter. You can see my facing has been top stitched at the back so that it doesn't move anywhere, and maybe you can see the detail of the weave here, the twill. This fabric is one of my most favorites for winter because it's heavier, it's a little warmer, but it's still so drapey. I know black isn't an actual color, but I love it. And why not? It's always nice to have black tops in different styles and different fabrics. Here is my black Declic blouse. This one's rayon twill. It's the same as all the others. The only difference is that I've got a full length sleeve to this one. Super nice for in between weather, autumn and winter. This is the way to go. And I've pulled out my plum color upland trousers from Itch to Stitch. Anything can go with this, but I just pulled these out because they're pretty. These trousers are classic, straight leg. and this type of blouse will go over anything, and I love how this looks together. And now that I see these pants, you know, my plum colored top would also go with these, and then I'd have a type of monochromatic look. When you're creating this type of detail on a sleeve, you want it to be a little longer so that it blouses over. So if I'd measured my actual sleeve length and had no blousing, it would look very strange. It wouldn't look too nice. So I measured this one to be 1.5 inches longer than a regular sleeve would. And I think this looks so pretty, so delicate. Drapey fabric is the best for this type of style, and I absolutely love how this turned out. Same neckline as always, pretty pleats as always, with the long sleeve here. I am so happy with this. I was seriously lacking a long sleeve black top like this in a woven, so I'm glad I have one, and I know I'll be wearing this in many ways. I'm just running out of steam now. I hope you give this French pattern a go. I'm going to show you a picture of another pattern I found in their website that I really thought was cute. It has a lot of pin tucks, really lovely. You know, I'm always trying to find new brands because sometimes you find new designs that you haven't seen before, and this is definitely one I really enjoyed. And it's not just boring and basic, it's got the lovely detail right here, which is everything, and a V neckline. Yeah, I just love them so much. So have a lot of fun. It's free, why not? Go back and watch how to put sleeves on things because I really enjoyed doing that with this. And there are so many other patterns I would do the exact same process too, and just add a sleeve piece and then be happy and have one for winter as well. I'll see you again very soon with more sewing. Bye.